What happens when you take a villain that gives off really creepy pedo vibes and put it in a Harry Potter inspired world? Well, you get The School for Good and Evil, a new Netflix movie, and we're going to talk about that right now. Hi, everyone. My name is Matt Jarbo. This is Podio Commentary. And yeah, like I said in the intro there, I just got done watching The School for Good and Evil, the new Netflix young adult adaptation directed by Paul Feig, who you might know from films like Bridesmaids and The Heat and Spy and Ghostbusters 2016. And when I saw that his name was attached to this movie, yeah, I immediately had flashbacks to Ghostbusters 2016. But this is not a reboot of a beloved franchise. This is a adaptation of a young adult series written by Soman Chainani. If I'm mispronouncing that, I apologize. And the general idea of the books is that two 12-year-old girls are whisked away to the School for Good and Evil, where one goes to the good school, one goes to the evil school. They think that things got switched around and they got to solve the problems. Well, I'll tell you guys this. I read the outline of the book before recording, and while the movie and the book, I think, are similarly themed in a number of ways, they are vastly, vastly different. So if you happen to be a fan of this franchise and you're coming in this going like, I want a proper one-to-one adaptation, you're probably not going to be happy. But when I made the joke about the creepy pedo kind of guy in the beginning of the video here, no, that actually reigns true for the storyline. But the story in this case, at least in the book, two 12-year-old girls, Agatha and Sophia, get whisked away to the school. Here the girls are like 15, 16, 17. They're clearly teenagers, and this is clearly a high school, but there's clearly no real indication of how old they are, what grade they're in, and they don't really want to touch upon that, to be honest with you, because the story is all about them trying to figure out why they're at the school, figure out a way to get home, and figure out how to prove that Sophia is actually good when she's in the bad school, and the evil, not Voldemort-like character is trying to corrupt her and twist her for his own nefarious purposes. One of which also happens to be getting a child bride. I'm still like, that kind of weirded me out a little bit. That was like something that like the person wrote in a book and then like they put in the movie and like no one questions this whole thing. But you know, I'll just go right to the end on that one. The movie's fine. The movie's, it's fun. It's got a very young adult-esque, very Harry Potter-esque. You can get into it if you like that sort of thing. I would argue rewatchable if you want to watch it again. It's like 2.5 hours long. So there's that. But like, let's talk quickly about the ending, because I just have to get that out of my system. So the spoiler alert, the bad guy is the brother of the headmaster who he was pretending to be for like 200 years after he killed him, therefore throwing the balance of good and evil out of whack, which on its, you know, on face value, yeah, okay, fine, you get that, right? Like, brother consumes all evil, ends up going a tad too far, kills his brother, tips the scales, then he assumes his brother's identity to then find a way to bring evil back by making good win, but corrupting good in the process, which that is an interesting point of the movie, where the good is like, you're watching this and you're like, the bad isn't that bad. The bad isn't that bad at all. Fine, they're bad, but like, it's like, whatever. But then you go to the good and you're like, none of these people are good. None of these people are good. They're all vain. They're shallow. They're just like the Valley Girl type approach to it. And you're like, they're not good people, but they're still being treated as being good. And that's because good has been corrupted until here comes Agatha. And Agatha is very much she's different. She's like the good witch and starts kind of like turning the tables. The story is more about Agatha than I would argue Sophia, but they're best friends. And honestly, I figured out the ending to the movie, like as soon as they mentioned true love's first kiss, because that's like the whole thing they're going for to get Sophia out of the school. They need true love's first kiss. Sophia's like all hot and bothered for Trados, right? Whatever his name is. He's basically Lancelot's son, who is like, he's got Excalibur. He's in the school. I mean, you got like Hook's kid there. You've got like Sheriff of Nottingham's daughter there. Cupid makes an appearance. There's like a references to Snow White and Little Red Riding Hood. It takes every like fantasy trope, fantasy character, and it throws them, or I should say everyone that's currently available probably in the public domain, and throws them into this particular school, which is nice for the world building aspect of it. To be fair, it is cool for the world building part of it. I did enjoy that quite a bit. but it's also just kind of there as set dressing because it doesn't really like play a big part in the movie itself. It's just background. So you can go, oh, that's familiar. I know that. And you don't really think much about it. And that is, I think, by design, because they are trying to tell the story of these two girls, one in the light, one in the dark, trying to come together and get the hell out of there. So it makes sense. I would, the writing was okay. You know what I mean? The writing was okay. The writing was passable. It was, wasn't anything great. Paul Feig co-wrote the script. And so, performances by Charlize Theron and Kerry Washington were over the top at first, but then as time went on, I actually really enjoyed both of their performances. I thought that the two girls, for Agatha and Sophia, did a good job in their respective roles. I thought the main actors were pretty good. The only one I didn't really care for was the bad guy. Kit Young is who played him. And I just kind of felt like there's one point in the movie where like, cause he's kind of like tweaking with Sophia. He's kind of like, he's using her to build up himself, or to build her up to where he can, make her his child bride. And that is something that happens. And there's this bit where it's kind of like they're fighting with their familiars, so to speak. Like she's fighting this girl with like a fire dragon, and she's got control of bees. Sophia's got control of bees, and that they battle bees, snuff out the dragon, I guess. But then here comes the bad guy, and he literally I'm not even kidding you when I say this. Like they just rip off Candyman. They just rip off Candyman. He's got the trench coat. He's covered in bees. Half his face is exposed. It's straight up Tony Todd from Clive Barker's Candyman. And I was like, dude, come on. That's like 100% blatant here, what you guys are trying to do from this. And the older audiences will get it. The younger audiences won't get it. And maybe that's the reason why they did it. It's definitely an homage, but it was like a little bit too on the nose, if you know what I mean. But anyway, you get to the end of the movie, evil is winning and the good is losing. And they actually end up switching places, which I thought was actually kind of interesting. But at the same time, the rules of it were kind of redundant. So, good can never attack evil. Good can only defend from evil. But if good attacks evil, then evil is now good. And that's like their justification for literally flipping the script and having what is probably one of the most like cringe inducing fight scenes in a school, where like literally at one point, like all these kids are fighting each other. They're all using their powers. Like one kid, the Captain Hook's kid, is clobbering effers in the face with a mace, right? Or is it a halbrand? Like he's just like bam, 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 and then like literal cold clocking them in the head, like not even a problem. The Lancelot's kid guts a dude with Excalibur, killing another kid. I mean, at this point, he's literally killing another kid. And that's not the first time he killed a kid in the movie either, because here's a weird thing with this movie. Each of the people, like each student can only fail a lesson 3 times. If you fail for your 3rd time, you end up getting like morphed into something. They get rid of you. They expel you. And this one kid, what's his name? Grover is his name, right? And he's Prince Charming's kid, but he can't ride a horse. He can't fight. He's afraid of plants. The dude just wants to work in a grocery store. Ends up failing right in front of Agatha. And she's like, oh my God. So she's trying to like push back a little bit on it with like the other teacher, Lady Dovey, played by Kerry Washington. The names are terrible, by the way. And then here comes this giant, like rotting bird, and you find out that's Grover. And then as Agatha's looking at Grover, this is what he's been transmuted into. Here comes, Terdos with Excalibur and just like hooks it right into the kid's chest, kills the kid. She's like, you killed Grover. And he's like, man, I was saving Milady. I was saving Milady. Never really brought up again. Brought up one other time, but no consequences for anyone. They don't even mention it really in any kind of conceivable fashion. Like it's just Agatha complaining as it goes on. And you're like, what in the ever loving hell? Like they literally like murdered this kid and like no one cares. Now that might be in part due to the corruption that the bad guy has placed upon them, which is something to consider. And again, I thought that was an interesting plot point. But at the end of the movie, when like Sophia has gone all bad, she's infused with blood magic and she's been all terrible and stuff. She goes to confront the schoolmaster. You find out that it's really the brother in disguise. Again, we've seen this in Harry Potter and stuff. And then she like, he's like, oh, you're my true love. You, true love's first kiss. We can bind and control everyone. We can rule over them, Sophia. You, child. 12 years old in the book, but here clearly 15, 16, maybe 17. The actress herself is 20. You are my true love. And then, like, she's basically just like, F it. And they make out. And it's creepy. It's creepy. Maybe that's the point. It's still creepy. It's even creepier in the book. I mean, kind of like in the, the first episode of Game of Thrones, when Khal Drogo marries, Khaleesi, right? Daenerys, and they end up like bopping uglies and whatnot. Like in the show, it's really like, God, this is completely, bad things. In the book, she's 13. In the show, she's clearly over the age of 18, but in the book, she's 13. So here they also wanted to age it up. It doesn't make it any better. It doesn't make it any better, but that's what they did. I'm like, okay, a little bit weird, a little creepy. But then, here comes, Agatha, she fights back. And as the bad guy is going to kill her, Sophia sacrifices herself, therefore cutting off the connection with the blood magic to an extent. And then here comes Terdos. He's got Excalibur. They fight. Terdos is going to lose. But then, of course, friendship saves the day. The girls are able to work together, even though Sophia is dying, in a pretty cool moment where, she uses her magic to throw Excalibur to Agatha, who then is able to jump up, twirl around, and basically just cut the bad guy. He dies. Sophia dies. And then, of course, right, what have we been hearing all the way through? True love's first kiss. Well, true love is the true love of friendship, sisterhood. And I saw that coming a mile away. And it just seemed to make the most amount of sense in this particular scenario. But I saw that coming a mile away. And that's what that was. And then, Sophia, her wounds heal. And everything's all good and gravy. And the girls end up going back home, still imbued with their magical ability, their little ET finger. And that's where the story ends. Again, it's totally different than the movie or than the book. And there's other books. I think there's 5 books in the franchise or something. So I have to wait and see if this does well enough for Netflix to commission other stories. It works well as a standalone. Even there's a little bit of a thing at the end there that's leading into a cliffhanger. And I don't really know what it is. There's a narrator voiced by Kate Blanchett who mentions it at the end, and then a dagger comes in and splits an arrow, and you're like, I don't even know what the hell's happening here. Whatever. But I mean, look, I could see it doing well with the young teen crowd, and I could see it doing well with those young adults. I should say the Harry Potter files out there that are just my God, the Fantastic Beasts franchise is terrible. This is something that could speak to them. You're right. Like the adult Disney people, you know what I mean? You know what I'm talking about, right? Women with lots of cats. This could speak to that. Actually, no, I'm joking, but I think this could be watched by anybody. I enjoyed it. I'll probably end up watching it again. My girlfriend wants to see it all the way through, and it'll just be interesting to kind of dive back in and watch it without my kids running back and forth constantly. Cause I had to pause it and rewind it a little bit in order to be able to catch some of the dialogue. Not the worst movie I've ever seen. Not the best movie I've ever seen. It's somewhere in the middle. I'm not too sure if I'm the I don't even want to say that I'm not the target audience, because I think that, as I've said before, I find that to be reductive. What I think is that I'm a person who enjoys a fun story. I enjoy fantasy. I enjoy the world that this particular story built. There's just elements of the adaptation that I feel were definitely better served in the book. But then reading the outline of the book, as I said before, it doesn't really feel like it syncs up. But that's just me. You might think differently. And if you've seen this movie, I really want to know what you think about this film. Let me know down in the comment section. Subscribe if you're new, like the video. Thanks again, and peace out.